Welcome into another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No fucking way is that a gimme, right?
Let's go! Well, it is the Super Bowl edition of Gas, everyone. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. Boy, do we have so much to peel through today, not only with Super Bowl 59, Jay, but, we got a little bit of chaos in the NBA as well. But, I'm happy, because I'm with you, Jay, but I'm also sad because we're at the last football game of the year.
It really is a bittersweet time, and it goes so fast. And the excitement for week one, I do some work for oddchart.com, and Tony Farmer, who I host a show with, talks about week one NFL Sunday is his favorite day of the year. And I couldn't agree more. So now, sort of at the end of that, but I will say, having done a lot of content this year and doing content with you and the NFL draft coming up and us being Boston sports fans, the Boston Celtics opportunity to defend the championship. So there's a lot coming down the pike. I'm still waiting for Alex Bregman to come through that door from a Red Sox standpoint. So I guess I'm trying to lean into some of these other sports because football is on such a pedestal with me, as you know.
Oh, no, and it is with me too, obviously. And, you need some of the shakeup like we had this week in the NBA. And you and I are going to unpack the Super Bowl every way possible. But man, oh man, considering we're in the NBA championship vortex, right, of the Boston Celtics. We know they're one of the teams that are going to be in it. And we hear this week, shockingly, that Luka Doncic, who was against the Celtics last year and turned down every tough opportunity, by the way, but that might be why he's gone, was traded to the Lakers in what was like what you read about, Jay. It was clandestine. It was just conversations between two people for weeks at a time, and it never got out. There are so many layers to this, but where are you on Luka being traded and shaking up the whole NBA?
I think you put it well that there are so many layers and there's so many ways to discuss this that I don't even know where to begin. You telling me LeBron James didn't know anything about them getting a top 3 NBA player to join him in Los Angeles? The way I'm going to go with this is I'm happy to be a Boston Celtics fan. I'm happy that the Celtics won the championship last year. And ultimately, if this is going to factor into the Boston Celtics equation, it's going to be in the NBA Finals. But Luka Doncic, if the physicality is the difficult point of it, right, where he's a little bit chubby and not in shape, what a perfect town for him to get in shape at. All these beautiful people in Los Angeles. I'm telling you, he's going to be, the next time he even sees the court, he's going to look slimmer than he has before. I am fascinated to see what we hear about behind the scenes that went into this. I do believe that Dallas, some of their individuals took this personally, and that's what I believe their main mistake. Whatever their issues were with Luka Doncic pulling the beer out of his hand, Michael Finley, whatever issues they have, he is an all-NBA, 5-time all-NBA player at 25 years old, an all-world talent mentally, and I think the physical stuff isn't going to be an issue down the road. And for the Lakers, Anthony Davis gets you a championship, and now he can go along his merry way and bring you back Luka Doncic. I'm blown away.
Yeah, we were on our way back from the bare knuckle fighting event in Mohegan on Saturday night, right? So drunken Reba McEntire is in my passenger seat going nuts with the music on 40. My wife's belting it out, and my 20-year-old is in the back seat. He's a real MMA lover, and he just starts yelling in the back, and we're like, turn it down. And he was like, Luka got traded. And the first thing I said was, is it verified? Because you think it's a joke that Luka ends up getting traded, but no, it was very, very real. In the way that the general manager, Nico Harrison, went about this, I think, Jay, as tough as it is, it's the only way he really could have gone about it. Think of what sports talk radio would have been like if we knew that Luka was even on the trade block, let alone what Luka would do contractually and trying to blow it up, because he's almost at the end of his deal right now. What caught me off guard, believe it or not, and this is the video that now people are turning to. There's Luka with his dad, and there's Michael Finley, who, you want to step to him, go ahead, he'll take the challenge. He just takes the beer right out of his hand, and Luka just kind of, shrugs it off a little bit. Jay, the thing that I did not expect was the betting markets to move the way they did. There are trades that move the number, and then there are trades that move the number. The Lakers to win the finals went from plus 4,000 to plus 1,800 almost immediately, and they settled at plus 1,600 after, everybody kind of took it all in. The win total went from 45.5 to 48.5. But here's the part of this story that really gets me. Dallas was so frustrated with Luka and that he wouldn't listen. He gets himself traded, and Luka ends up costing himself, some would argue, $117 million on his extension. If you're Luka Doncic, even though you've been getting paid since 15 years old, you probably want to stab that Dallas GM right in the eyeball.
Oh, take it out on the weight room. And, the way they do business in Los Angeles, he'll be taken care of, right? He'll find whether take a memo from Magic Johnson and the Dodgers, they'll find a way to fatten his bank account. But it is fascinating that he is no longer eligible for that super max. I think there's no way he leaves LA. He's going to finish his career in LA. They will figure out a way to sign him. But the fact that the Lakers may be getting this guy on a discount, it just blows my mind. I am very interested to see, from this season standpoint. Think about a guy like Klay Thompson who went there to play with Luka, maybe chase a championship, right? This season, if Anthony Davis is healthy, how much noise Dallas can actually make. There are a lot of smart basketball minds that talk about the inability of the Lakers playing defense before this and what'll happen. But I think you're going to see a whole different Luka Doncic. I think he's going to end up being like shredded to give the middle finger to the Mavericks.
Well, here's the thing. Does Luka end up really getting to him? I mean, does LeBron end up getting to him? Because think about it. LeBron's in the last year of his deal. There's a player option in there. Isn't LeBron going to be the only guy to be able to get through to this dude? If the Mavericks couldn't, if they went through multiple coaches that couldn't get through to this guy, he's been in the league since he's been 18 years old, for crying out loud, and hasn't done anything from that end in terms of making himself better, getting in better shape. And come on, like this was my argument on Mad Dog Radio the other day, and you would appreciate this. We've watched how Jason Tatum has transformed his body. When he was a 19-year-old coming into the league to what he looks like now, he's a completely different person, right? And why can't Luka do that? Why didn't Luka do that? Because it's not in him. Like in Tatum, there is the different kind of dog who wants to play 48 minutes, but play well. Luka's okay with playing 48 minutes. It's just you're going to get what you're going to get. And there's where the separation of greatness is, in my opinion, that even though Luka's a little younger, he's got all the talent in the world. The difference is Jason Tatum cares about the next level of his play enough to be in shape, whereas Luka by 30 might be washed because he is skinny fat.
Well, I fought the organization more than I fought Luka at age 25 years old. If they can't get that switch to be flipped, and I talk about being shredded. Nikola Jokic isn't shredded, right?
I need to look like you. No, for God's sake. You and John doing it. Yeah, let's play some shirtless pickleball and show up.
Get out of here. Get out of here shirtless. I got back hair. But Larry Bird, right? Running stairs in the old Boston Garden, running up and down the bleachers. It's a different level, but I think he's going to be able to flip that switch. But if I'm LeBron, this motivates me to want to stay. My best chance to win a championship if I'm LeBron is to be teamed up with one of the best three players in the league. And Barkley coming out saying that he doesn't think they can figure out how to play together because they both need to have the ball in their hands. I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah, I'm with you. And if anything, it might be a good change for Luka to not have the ball in his hands, to not be so dominant, to be able to do things a little differently and add to his game. Bronny is playing well as well. So you're right. Maybe this does bring LeBron back for one more year, and then the Lakers get what they really need out of LeBron, which is to maybe help Luka. But my goodness, it was a seismic shift to the odds in the NBA. The Celtics are still looking very good. Yeah, I'm a little nervous
for a sec on the Celtics, right? Because yesterday on the huddle, I wore my old school Celtics jacket, and while all this was going down, the Celtics, who had sort of been fluttering in the regular season, down 26 at Philly late in the third quarter, 90-64. flip that, play maybe their best 15 minutes of basketball all season. And I think that's a huge win for the defending champions. Joe Mazzulla was fired up on the sidelines, and I think it's very funky defending a championship in an 82-game regular season. It's daunting. So for me, I like the ebbs and flows, and I think that was a nice moment early February for them to have maybe a cathartic moment. What do you think?
Oh, I'm 100% with you. And we're about to see two things in the month of February that will ultimately kickstart the Celtics. One will be the trade deadline. What does Brad Stevens have up his sleeve? He's got smaller pieces to deal, but he's also got to be budget conscious as well, to where if, I'm not saying you're getting rid of Sam Hauser, right? But you're going to have to start making a choice of, do I want to pay Sam Hauser? Do I want to be the owner that pays Sam Hauser $9 or $10 million a year? That's why I wonder if he might be up for auction, let's say, if you can find one more piece, because that's really all you need, is that one more piece for the Celtics where you can then go 7 and 8 deep and feel really good about where they are, even though we like the bit players. And then there's the All-Star game. So think of this. Once the All-Star game hits, Jay, that's kind of the line of demarcation in the NBA of all right, now things are about to get real and they're about to get serious. And I think here going into the month of March, we're going to see the Celtics start to ramp it up a little bit. And you said really the key guy, Joe Mazzulla. There's been a plan for this year. I don't know if it's gone completely perfect in terms of wins and losses, but they're healthy, they're upright, everybody's available. And now for the month of March, you wait. I think they're going to hone in. If Stevens can add someone else into the mix, that's going to be the perfect thing. That's going to be the perfect thing that the Celtics need to sort of push them over the hump here before a new owner comes in and tears them apart.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe in Joe Mazzulla more. You can be sure he's not going to be resting on his laurels on that championship. Now, I don't ingest every regular season quarter of this team.
Nope.
But I'm not so sure I want to see them jeopardize the chemistry necessarily as the defending champion. I've said over and over, I think they could suffer an injury and still be good enough to win it all if they're playing disciplined and not throwing up all over themselves. Because when they lose, they beat themselves. Where do you think they're lacking?
I think it's adding one more big if you can. Like, if you can find an upgrade from Luke Cornett, then I think you do so. Because I think you have plenty of three-point shooting. I mean, Hauser is a very good playoff player, and you're right, he fits into the chemistry of this team. But when I look at, can I upgrade that spot potentially? Because Lord knows with Peyton Pritchard, they have enough three-point shooting. The issue is Peyton Pritchard, not a great defensive player. Sam Hauser at least gives you great effort on the defensive end, even if he isn't a great defensive player. But if you can get one more big, because I'll tell you this, Jay, the other thing too would be if you can find one more big that is better than Cornett, then you insulate yourself a little bit if Porzingis gets dinged up the way he did last year, or if all of a sudden, and we take for granted, Al Horford is old but has not shown to be old. Who knows? He might show up in June and have rigor mortis, and then you got a problem.
Good point. And Yabusele on Philadelphia, former Celtic. There's some rumblings about potentially them going to get him and bringing him back. I wouldn't hate it. Sam Hauser's one of those names that, when you are defending a world championship, there is a little bit of my heart that gets involved, and I don't love sort of losing pieces from that chip before you try to defend it. That's all.
Yeah, no. And I think for Brad Stevens, it's can I stay in front of the it's like Indiana Jones, where you're running, you're looking over your shoulder. He knows that eventually the day of reckoning is coming in terms of there's going to be a new owner who's going to get in here. By the way, since we're on the Celtics, Jay, Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie basically kind of threw cold water on him potentially coming in and buying the Celtics. And I want a Ballmer type, basically, so I know that the money doesn't matter. But I also know to rich people, money matters more to them than just being a fan of an organization. That's where Wyc Grousbeck was rare. And I'm hoping they have someone that comes in and says, boy, I'd really like to get one of those rings for my own. Let me pay a ridiculous tax to keep this team together to do it. I just don't know if that is going to be the fate. So, bro, after this All-Star game, I'm going to be watching everything Celtics because I really believe in my heart it won't be the same group next year. But if you give me back-to-back and you give me Banner 19, okay, fine. I'll live with it the way it is.
Couldn't agree more. And I think there were opportunities in 22 and 23 for them to potentially win the whole thing, and they didn't. So the window on the dynasty, I know that these guys are in their prime. The window on the dynasty perhaps it can close quickly, because winning that second championship, right? When the Celtics in 2010 went to Game 7 against the Lakers and had a late lead, Rasheed Wallace lit it up. They didn't get that second championship. You don't think KG, Ray Allen was, I don't remember if Ray Allen was, you don't think KG and Pierce remembered differently had they hoisted that second ring, and Ray Allen too? Yeah. So
no question. And you're right. Sheed, that's what I'd love to avoid. Right, the Sheed needing to start in an NBA Finals, which is you kind of stumbled me into the point, which is good. Now I can hijack it for when I'm on ESPN Radio and Sirius, and just remind people that, you don't want to tweak the roster a little bit. Well, you could have Sheed Wallace starting in Game 7. And by the way,
he's terrific. I love me some Sheed.
I do too, but at that point, that's not the guy I want in there playing for an NBA title, for God's sakes. And
he was the reason you almost hoisted it.
He busted his ass. I'll give him that. Like, remember, there's the old phrase of people being like, he left it out there. No, that was Rasheed. He literally left it out there to where they had to drag him off the floor after 30 minutes. And, he can ride off into the sunset, feeling good about that. So the NBA All-Star Game is coming up in 2 weeks. Really, it's the only one left that people really peek in on. But after that, watch for the Celtics to kind of surge. And, of course, we know on Sunday, ladies and gentlemen, in New Orleans, it's going to be Super Bowl 59. And I woke up today, Jay, seeing all of the people who were doing the 23 years ago today, Tom Brady did this in New Orleans. And it is interesting, and this might be just a quick aside for you and I as sort of Patriots-leaning people, but New Orleans has such a history to not only the Super Bowl, but the Patriots Super Bowls as well. A lot of people have said New Orleans should be the host city all the time. Now, I don't know if you would agree with that or not.
No, I don't agree with that. But when you start talking, I mean, I like it bouncing around.
Me too.
I wouldn't necessarily like it in a cold climate, but I wouldn't mind even a place like Miami getting it and having there be a weather variable potentially. It's not going to be snowing, but there could be a variable. But no, it shouldn't be in New Orleans every year. But 23 years ago, right? And I don't know if it was Gino Cappelletti on the call, right?
I'll tell you exactly who. It was Gil and Gino on the call, because they weren't even in a broadcast booth. If my legend remembers correctly, I think they were in like an alternate location calling it at the time. That's how primitive it was in terms of the infrastructure of getting the Super Bowl ready.
I mean, I get chills talking about it, thinking about it back, when he says the Patriots are Super Bowl champions, he says that twice. And then he says the best team in the National Football League. And for those of us that grew up as Patriots fans in the 80s and 90s, to hear that utterance, the best team in the National Football League. I'm such a big NFL fan in part because the Patriots have 6 championships. I feel so bad for these organizations like the Buffalo Bills, right? Kansas City and Philadelphia have been there. They've won one in recent memory, both organizations, right? I'd be lying to you if I wish there wasn't some other blood in here, whether it be Lions, Bills, Ravens. To me, I'm not thrilled with whoever hoists it, but I do think we got the 2 best teams in this game.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that people are upset that the 2 best teams just happen to be the 2 best teams from last season as well. And Lord knows we went through this level of Groundhog Day, did we not?
Yep.
Whether it was Baltimore for a period of time or Indianapolis for a period of time, you just know there's certain teams that you're going to run into. And, in terms of Super Bowl rematch, it's interesting, Jay, because I don't think a lot of people have talked enough about these are 2 teams that know each other. These are 2 teams that have played close before. These are 2 teams who are excellent and elite in their own way. But I do kind of think in terms of some of the modern fan battle out there, right? With modern fans, it's you get a quarterback and a wide receiver and rub your nipples all up because you're going to go nuts. But if the Eagles win this game and they run for 200 yards and Saquon Barkley runs for 150 and a couple of scores, I don't feel like it'll cause a seismic shift in the NFL, but it's kind of a nice reminder that, yes, you need a quarterback and, yes, wide receivers are functional, but at the end of the day, who hasn't lost to the bully in the schoolyard? And that's what I think is forgotten about today's football.
Well, and if Philadelphia ends up winning this football game, this offensive line running back combination is probably the singular most dominant, group of five plus the back in NFL history. Saquon Barkley is such a special professional athlete, such a special human. I loved his comments, right? Just coming out of Penn State. I like everything about it. We've talked on other shows about the loss of him in that Giants locker room. So I think he brings even more to the table, right? And as good as Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry really taking a team on his back quite the way Saquon is? I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. What's interesting for me, though, as we talk about the game, and you talk about the rematch, right? Let's say Philly does get this, right? And then you say, oh, it could be a trilogy in a few years, right? Or they could meet again and it could be 1-1. But if they don't get this and the Chiefs get that third straight, and Philadelphia's been there 2 of the last 3 with the hiccup last year, who knows? Maybe A.J. Brown's barking and coming and joining his friend Mike Vrabel in Massachusetts. So I think a lot can happen if Philadelphia loses this game, even though they've really had a quite elite 3-year stretch.
Yeah, that is interesting, because it would make you wonder, okay, why can't we can get here, but we can't win? So what tweak do we make outside of changing the quarterback, changing the head coach? In a way, they would be in a similar spot like Buffalo. Hey, we're good enough to get to a certain point, but we can't get here. So how do we get here? And I know you and I are going to get into the Mahomes three-peat against the Brady legacy coming up a little bit here on Gas, but I do think it is more than just Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in this game. You're right. Barkley's having a special year. And to me, this is where another move that Kansas City made will really show itself. They had $30 million to spend. Do we spend it on Tyreek Hill or do we spend it on Chris Jones? They spent it on Chris Jones. They're now going for a three-peat because that guy in the interior is a wrecker. See Aaron Donald, see Richard Seymour back in the day whenever they turned him loose in New England. I mean, let's remember, Richard Seymour was a rookie, and then they decided, oh, yeah, let's go put this big sumbitch starting to nose tackle in the Super Bowl, right? So the big men have always been a part of it, and this is where if you're a Kansas City fan and you've been sitting around and you're scorned because they let Tyreek Hill go to keep Chris Jones, this might be the game where if you already haven't relented already and said, you know what, they made the right move, this might be the one because, Jay, I really think Chris Jones and Jalen Carter, respectively, the big D tackles for each team, are very live for Super Bowl MVP, especially Jones if they hold down Barkley.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I believe that these quarterbacks are both going to play well enough that a defensive player is going to have a real difficult time winning the MVP. Ooh. The over 49.5. I don't know how I feel. I have enough respect for these defenses that even though I maybe lean over, I'm laying off it. But as we get into this game, right, on oddchart.com, I gave out a prediction. I was sort of asked spontaneously to give out a Super Bowl prediction. And before the postseason began, I hadn't necessarily prepared. And I went Eagles over Chiefs, right? But now that the game is here, I don't like the Eagles. I'm going to be surprised if the Eagles win. I like the Chiefs. And so I played the Chiefs money line, whether it's -1, -1.5. I'd buy it down to 1, if anything. But, it's like I found out about the Luka trade on Patrick Mahomes' Twitter handle, right? It's like he's ice. And normally you say, oh, distracted. No, it's that dude is so locked in, doesn't matter. He's tweeting about NBA trades. That is fascinating, right? Mahomes sort of as a Mavericks fan, but I just absolutely love the Chiefs, right? They won 17 straight one-score games. I believe in Andy Reid. Patrick Mahomes is a 5-tool player, but in the regular season, it's only a 4-tool player. They don't let him use his legs. They almost treat him like Brady. So I think the way Kansas City opens things up, the way they have the nuances and different things that we will see something that we haven't seen all year out of Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. So to me, I believe so much in the Chiefs defense. I believe they are so much like the Patriots. Did you hear Brady's quote this week? Right? Talking about the history, right?
No,
quote,
I did not.
Quote, this is Tom Brady. Saturday night, we were so prepared and so focused. We were the opposite of tight. We were always relaxed because we had the answers to the test. I just think the way that Reed and Mahomes prepare, it's fanatical in the same way. It's all about the attention to detail. You sent out some statistics for the regular season, right? And the Eagles, in a lot of these categories, Eagles over Chiefs. But the one category, third down conversions, Chiefs. Second, the one that when it matters most, I just have so much faith in Patrick Mahomes and his decision-making and his ability to use his legs. I could talk about it all day long. In the biggest game, he has a tool that he doesn't have during the regular season. He's allowed, it breaks down a little bit. I'm going to just get my 4, get my 5. I think he's going to check down the ball a lot. I love the Chiefs here. I'm going to be shocked if Philly wins.
Yeah, I when you initially said what you said about Mahomes, I was curious because I was like, well, admittedly, he doesn't run around like Lamar Jackson. But if you look at the history of Patrick Mahomes, especially in these moments, it is the legs that are enticing to me, especially as a bettor, right? Because
right.
I've looked heavy at these anytime touchdowns, and I know we're going to get to it, but I wanted to bring up something because you mentioned Mahomes in terms of running, because I have a couple of parlays where Mahomes is mixed in there, and thank you, DK, for the $20 bonus bet, because I did slide Philly in on the money line to get me tremendous value because there is a chance I think Philly wins this game. But you look at Mahomes in the Super Bowl rushing, just Super Bowl, Shay. Because let's remember, last week, he had 2 rushing touchdowns against Buffalo.
Yep.
So against San Francisco, his first time in, 9 rushes, 29 yards, did get the touchdown. Against Tampa, where the score got tilted, only 5 rushes, 33 yards. But against Philly, Mahomes, 6 rushes, 44. Last year against San Francisco, 9 rushes for 66. That's why I think the anytime touchdown prop on Mahomes is live, because it could either be a QB sneak or one of these amazing runs from Mahomes. There is the danger of him not running it in to be able to throw it. But you look anytime touchdown, Pat Mahomes is plus 310. And you're telling me that on the low end, Jay, in a blowout, he had 5 rushes against Tom Brady in Tampa. But otherwise, he is in the 7, 8, 9 rush category when he's in these Super Bowls. I think just the sheer volume of carries he might end up having. If he has 8, one of them's going to be around the goal line, or at least in the money zone, let's call it 10 yards and in, to where maybe he does sneak in and get you a touchdown. And I think that's an astute point you make, in that Mahomes' legs now become something you have to worry about. And that's where, if you're Philly, I think Mahomes is 7-0 against Vic Fangio defenses. So if you're Philly, you got to pick your poison.
I like all that stuff. Mahomes had 11 carries last week. And if there is some question mark as to who may get those goal line carries, whether it's Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, I know Samaje Perine may have some activity there. So if you're a little hesitant on those backs, I saw Mahomes at 4-1 or plus 400. I think now plus 310. But I have so much conviction on the Chiefs here, and the Patriots examples just are endless. But I want to just bring it back to Joe Mazzulla real quickly. And I believe he has been the term sort of defending a championship, right? He's taken exception with that term. And I've spent a lot of time with UFC welterweight champion Bilal Muhammad since he's won his UFC belt. And when we talk about his first title defense, we throw the word defense out the window. He's competing for a brand new championship against Shavkat Rakhmonov or whoever else is in the building. And I think Mazzulla and the Celtics have taken that same approach. It's all about the next one. That's what it was with the Patriots. So for me, with the Chiefs, I think there's so much less pressure on this team. I like the chemistry more. I like Sirianni a lot. He's growing on me. I think the Eagles play for one another, but I think Jalen Hurts is a little bit more of a polarizing guy. Not necessarily. I just think the Chiefs are playing with house money. I think they're playing for one another. I think everything is bigger than the individual there. It reminds me so much of New England, and that's why I think, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are right there already with Brady and Belichick.
Well, when and we're going to get into the Mahomes Brady thing, because it is fascinating. If Mahomes ends up getting the 3-peat, it might be the one way to push back against Brady, kind of beating him head to head. But I do think from the coaching end, it's clearly advantage Andy Reid. There's no doubt. Here's the thing that I don't know. Is the story that is Saquon Barkley so unbelievably special that he's just going to say, boys, get on my shoulders. I'm going to carry us to this
Right.
victory. And a lot of people, it's a running back. How could a running back do that? It's a little more than that. It's the O-line, but you nailed it. It's belief. I think there's belief on both sides. And for Philadelphia, there's a renewed sense of belief, I think, because of Saquon Barkley. And I know there's all the numbers out there of running backs don't get to 125 in a Super Bowl and things of that nature. I don't know. Something just tells me that this might end up being Saquon's moment, and he's special enough to be able to, maybe with some help, kind of pull this off. That's why I kind of pause, and I'm with you on the whole total thing. I think the total's a stay away bet. I can't figure out if this is going to be a game that's 35-31 or if this is a game that's going to be 21-20, you know? Because it just stylistically, it can be very, very different. But the Saquon story, if there's ever going to be the hallmark moment in the NFL, right? This would be it. Saquon, you won the Super Bowl, and where are you going? I'm going to Disney World, all that stuff, right? That's on the table for this guy.
I agree with everything you said. And if you really like the Eagles in the game, I would look real hard at Saquon for MVP, because I don't think they win this game unless he breaks a long one. And if he breaks a long one, his numbers will be there, whether it's 1 or 2 touchdowns. So I almost may hedge my Chiefs action with Saquon MVP. Tony Farmer brought up on the huddle, interesting, that Saquon could get this MVP and the Chiefs may even win the game. He's been that dominant. But I think his vision, right, is a big piece of this. I just think he sees things before they happen. And I know this is going to sound like Boston bias, but one of the things I like very much about Drake May is that his decision making, even though he was prone to turnovers, whatever, but he seemed to see things before I did, sitting at home, God forbid. And I like that very much. And I think Saquon is elite in terms of him seeing how the play is going to shake out before it does.
Hey, just quickly, did you see any of the Pro Bowl? I only say that because Drake May hit his interception prop.
Hey-o. He was picked?
Oh, yeah, in the Pro Bowl, baby.
So was he an alternate? Is that how?
Yeah. What happened was, I think Josh Allen might have bailed out or someone like that after a conference champion. I think Goff bailed and maybe, I think that's how that went down. But no, he was not originally put in there. I think what they did is they went on the Instagram and they were like, okay, you're in an island just off the coast of Florida proposing to your girl. Get your ass over here to Orlando and, we'll throw you in the game. And yeah, that was interesting. I just had to get that in there because I know you are you're full no pants stance when it comes to Drake May right now. And that Vrabel coaching staff, man, what a difference from last year. Oh my God. They have
you know what?
They have 3 former OCs on staff, not even calling plays.
Bro, and I'm telling you, I talked last week on Gas about the players being scared, and guess who echoed that sentiment? Tom Brady, in talking about Belichick over the year, being scared, almost like it's his dad. Let's go, gentlemen. Come on, Drake.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Bill's discipline was bad, but Mike's discipline will be good. But I digress. It's the Chapel Bill, by the way, stacking up those recruits down there. To see old William Hoodsworth go on the recruiting trail and walk into Anik High down in Florida or something like that, where he's like suited and booted going to meet a kid who's like just out of gym. It's hilarious to me.
Nobody looks less comfortable in a suit than Bill Belichick.
No question. Even standing by the 26-year-old, right? You see that little tweet? We're all, or 24-year-old, whatever she is. We're committed to hey, listen. Everybody's horny, so what are you going to do?
I really hope he's back in the NFL after 1 year, though. Come on, Bill, get back here. Pete Carroll coaching. Go catch Don Shula. I'd really be surprised if he doesn't come back to the big show.
Yeah, I do wonder if the goalposts have moved a little bit for him, and does a little taste of the college playoff be like,
right?
It's a different little challenge for me. Let me see if I can overcome this one, because here's you know what? And I know this is just riffing it on the fly because we have a bigger legacy discussion to get to. However, Bill Belichick with 6 as a head coach, Super Bowls, and 2 as an assistant. If he wins a college football playoff, does that put him over Saban, who didn't win fuck all or nothing in the NFL, but has all those college championships?
Very interesting question. I I don't know if he could take that North Carolina program to the top, but stranger things have happened. It's a whole different world out there. And if you've got the right people recruiting and sort of getting you out there, I mean, a lot of people want to, if you're going to come play for a few years, might as well play for one of the greatest coaches of all time.
By the way, there's also some rumblings that maybe UNC could be headed to the SEC in another possible shakeup. So imagine Bill going to Vanderbilt on a Saturday night. Oh, baby. I can't wait to see that. My man, Jason Anik, you can see him on Odd Sharks. You can also see him with Bilal Muhammad. And Bilal, thank you for all the love you have shown this show as well. And also Anik versus Anik on Odd Shark. You'll probably, I think I'm on Sirius XM Saturday morning and then Infinity Sports Radio on Sunday, getting you ready noon to 5 for the Super Bowl. Ooh. Yeah, you'll be on. You're booked. You just haven't been told yet. I love it. Yeah, we'll be down. Yeah. We'll definitely have some fun on Infinity Sports Radio, formerly known as CBS Sports Radio. I am at The Real Gresh. He is at Boston Anik. Make sure you follow us. Follow our guy, Cody, as well. Cody_Merrow. Get him on Twitter for all of the latest grousings about snow and shopping and things like that. Hey, I wasn't happy. All of a sudden, there's like 3 inches of snow out of nowhere Sunday night and out shoveling snow yesterday. Not fun. But a lot of people have been shoveling you-know-what under the shoes of sporting America, Jason Anik, because this whole, Pat Mahomes is the greatest quarterback that ever lived and make him the GOAT now, and he's great this, he's great that, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a guy calling the game in the booth who looks down from the booth and pegs the finger and says, I beat that guy twice with someone else's dude. So don't give me that rubbish. However, if the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes get the three-peat, Jay, it'll be the first real statistical talking point, let's call it, in terms of the Mahomes-Brady debate. So I ask you, Mahomes three-peat does what for this battle between these two, at least in the court of public opinion, for the greatest quarterback of all time?
I'm shocked to say it, but maybe if he gets this three-peat, it puts him sort of tied, if you will. I don't love greatest of all time conversations, but about a year and a half ago, someone put a camera in my face on a basketball court and asked me Jordan or LeBron. And in that moment was when I flipped to LeBron. I think he had just passed Wilt or whatever it is. And I ultimately believe he made his teammates better and it not being all about rings. One thing that Mahomes has already done that Brady didn't do is get to a third straight Super Bowl. That's not lost on me. About to win his 4th in 6 years. He's going to his 5th in 6 years, winning 3 in a row. For me, it's already a conversation. And the fact that as Patriots fans, you already have company for Brady and Belichick with Mahomes and Reed blows my mind. So for me, I don't love those conversations, but to some extent from different eras, the accomplishments aren't always going to be the same, right? Mike Greenberg always said Brady is the most accomplished quarterback of all time. Aaron Rodgers may be the best I've ever seen in the moment. Peyton Manning, I think, revolutionized the position. But for me, the best, even as a Patriots fan, is 15 in red now.
Well, I ain't going there, not even close, because number one, Brady did make 3 in a row. It was in 16, 17, and 18, but remember, they lost the middle one. So that's why it doesn't feel like 3 in a row, because it wasn't a chance for the three-peat, right? So there is that thrown in there. But Jay, can I ask you something? You and I lived through Tom Brady building his legacy, correct? And we heard all the stuff on the outside. Who was always compared to Tom Brady? Joe Montana.
Right.
If Mahomes wins this one, it'll be 4, just like Joe Montana. In an era where there were better teams, there was no free agency. So if you were Washington, you could be good every couple of years because your players weren't leaving. I'm amazed that Joe Montana, when it came to Tom Brady, that was the discussion. And then Brady blew by him in the high-speed lane eventually. But with Mahomes, we forget about the juxtaposition of Joe Montana. And, oh, by the way, if you look at the run for Montana in San Francisco, it was a decade, just like Patrick Mahomes. And that's the part that kind of gets me in all this is that, we're skipping a step because people just want to put Mahomes there right away. This is at least the first thing that in a Mahomes-Brady argument, because again, how do you trump being beaten by the Patriots and by Tampa in a big spot if you're Pat Mahomes? You almost can't. You need this three-peat, but where the hell is Joe Montana in all this? It's a decade in Frisco. It's a decade in Kansas City, but everybody, again, wants to run around with their tallywhackers out because it's Pat Mahomes and woo! When did we forget our history? With Brady, it felt like pulling teeth to get him any damn credit because of Joe Montana. And now Joe Montana doesn't exist when we're talking about Pat freaking Mahomes.
I put Patrick Mahomes above Joe Montana. What did Joe Montana achieve in Kansas City?
He took them to an AFC championship game when he was 34 after a bum elbow, and he did it with Marty Schottenheimer. Who's won with Marty Schottenheimer? Nobody has.
And Joe Montana didn't either. I mean, for me, Patrick Mahomes, the LeBron Jordan conversation, I hate to go back to that, but ultimately it can be a coin flip. It all depends on what your criteria is as an individual human. The unique thing for me as Mahomes is I think he's a more talented overall quarterback than Brady. That may make him not able to play as long because he needs to use his feet a little bit more, but he's more along the lines of Aaron Rodgers to me in terms of the unbelievable things he can do, and he's stacking up the rings as well. He already has 3. So for me, I'm a Tom Brady fan without question, but I believe when it's all said and done, Mahomes will, even if he doesn't get 7 rings, will have done enough to be looked at as the greatest of all time.
Yeah, here's the reason why I think people would go that way without the evidence is because they just want to. I mean, Cody just put it in our chat here, is that they so badly want it for not to be Brady.
Right.
And that's where the Patriot bias clearly comes in, is, well, we can't have Belichick as this. Just wait. Give it time. Even though there are 2 less Super Bowl wins, there are going to be people after this game, and I bet you that dopey Ryan Clark's probably going to be one of them, of the whole, well, we're going to put Andy Reid now above Bill Belichick because of the three-peat and the whole being paralyzed in the moment. I mean, Andy Reid's an all-time great, don't get me wrong, but come on now. I mean, let him be dominant for another decade, and then maybe we can start to talk about Andy Reid and Bill Belichick in that same sentence.
Well, and the longevity plays into it. Like LeBron's longevity matters. What the Patriots did over 20 years matters, but the 10 years without a Super Bowl titles, the greatness they achieved in those 10 years without those titles, to me, matters as well. And so when I project Mahomes' career forward, even if he ends up with 5, 6, 7 rings, I think they are going to continue to be dominant, and I believe it to be a more competitive era now. That's a different conversation. But I think the talent in the AFC in terms of those quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, 2 all-time greats perhaps that Mahomes has in his bracket every year.
If Pat Mahomes ends up being beside Brady, Mahomes should turn to Brady and thank him 1,000 times over, because the one part of the argument that when I've gotten into it with people and really started to bite them a little bit, right? Here's what I hit people with. Well, Pat Mahomes has never been hit in his life. And it's not because he's had great offensive lines. Some of it is because he's slippery, but some of it is because the rules that protected Mahomes were because Tom Brady got his leg blown out.
Good point.
When Tom Brady started his career, go look at the hit that he took. I think it was from Kevin Carter, in the Super Bowl against the Rams or something like that. Mahomes doesn't get any of those. In a way, Mahomes has been playing flag football. And that's why Brady, to me, is the best, because when the rules were tougher, he was still really good. And when the rules got lighter, it did allow him to play deeper into his career, but there was never any drop-off whatsoever when it came to Brady. And to me, that's the part that people can't handle, is Mahomes gets a phantom push, it turns into 15 yards. Meanwhile, Brady gets his freaking helmet knocked off in a game, and he puts his mouthpiece back in, has to put his helmet back on, and run the next play with his brain scrambled.
Fair.
That's where Mahomes has got nothing on Brady when it comes to the era that they played in. And even in the wussy era, Brady still beat him. It drives me nuts. It just drives me nuts. Now, I love Mahomes. This isn't a dump on Mahomes deal. But, Jay, just quickly the other way. What if Kansas City loses? If Kansas City loses, doesn't that become a massive check mark against this steamrolling train that people want of, hey, Pat Mahomes is the greatest who ever lived.
No, and the Montana and Jordan, the fact that they never lost in the finals, they got there less times. But what I will say about this big game coming up, right? I have some propositions. I don't like playing any of the funky stuff, but do you have a play on the side yet? Are you aligned with me on the Chiefs before I get to some of my props?
Now, here's the thing. If I were to bet it, yes, I would be. Like, I'm leaning Chiefs. I'm trying to talk myself into Philly a little bit. But at least I ended up getting from some bets, a $20 bonus bet from DK, right? And what I did was to jack up the value. Like, I love Mahomes and Hurts and Hunt and Barkley on an anytime touchdown. So I turned my $20 bonus play into $20 for 1,800 by throwing Philly on the money line in that bet. So for that one, I got Philly money line, Mahomes, Hurts, Hunt, Barkley anytime touchdown. It'd be 20 turning into 1,800. The ones I'm really playing, Jay, are much more three-leg parlays on anytime touchdowns to try to get some value. But if you told me right now, here's your 100, you have to bet this game, I would probably forget the point spread and just go Chiefs on the money line.
We gave out predictions yesterday on Oddshark on the Huddle, and Andrew Avery, Ninja, the host of the show, gave out the Eagles money line, right? We're taking the points or whatever it is. And then I said to him, I wish I could ask you this off the air, but gun to your head, are you taking the Eagles? And to make a long story short, no. Gun to his head. He's like, when you bring violence in, he leans Chiefs. But I gave out some props yesterday. I just want to bounce a few of these off of you, see what you think. So first one, and this is my only play on the Eagles side, Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. I know we've talked a lot about Saquon Barkley, right? I know that Jalen scored 3 times last week, and if you recall, Josh Allen punched it in a couple times in the divisional round and then didn't score a rushing touchdown in the AFC Championship game. Everybody loved him to score a touchdown. But Jalen Hurts is just different. I call it the quarterback sneak, just like Jalen Hurts. I don't use any of those other terms, but nobody runs that like Philadelphia. I like that prop bet, shortest touchdown under 1.5 yards, but it's swelled to like minus 185 or so. I think that has a lot to do with Jalen Hurts. He has 18 touchdowns in 17 starts this season, 9 touchdowns in 8 career playoff games. I still think Kansas City wins the game, but I think Jalen Hurts finds his way at least one time into the end zone.
I am 100% with you, and I think Saquon is good for a touchdown as well, and the betting markets have kind of shown it. I know early on that Saquon was, I think, the only guy who was minus money for an anytime touchdown. I know when it started, but I'm with you. I like Jalen Hurts to score. I don't think there's a lot of passing touchdowns in this game for Jalen Hurts. I think this to me is like maybe a 1 touchdown game because, to your point, we know they can run Philly special if they want to, or they can just run it up the middle with Jalen Hurts. So I don't know if you're feeling a Saquon touchdown as well, but I'm 100% with you. Hurts is getting a rushing touchdown in this game one way or another.
Yeah, I like the Saquon touchdown. I don't love playing multiple guys. I'm leaning more toward playing Saquon to win the MVP because I think he will be that if they win. Another prop I'm on, so I had anytime touchdown on the Philly side. My anytime touchdown on the KC side is Travis Kelce, plus 130 last I saw. I wanted to bet on Kelce in some capacity. Over 6.5 catches to me felt a little bit steep. I don't expect Philly's linebacking crew to let him just do whatever he wants all over the field. But Jerry Rice holds the all-time record for catches in a Super Bowl, 33. Kelce's at 31 right now. I think so we're seeing him at plus 145. So Kelce right now, 2 catches behind Jerry Rice for all time in the Super Bowl. I think they want to get him at least 3 catches. Yep. I think Reed Mahomes maybe get him that 3rd catch with style points and throw it to him in the end zone. I just feel as though sometimes in broken plays, he finds his way open. I do believe if they win the game, he may propose to Taylor Swift at midfield. She may probably prefer that to be elsewhere, maybe in the south of France or something, given what they can do. But I do like Travis to score a touchdown in this game, so that's another one I'm on.
Well, I know you mentioned your buddy at Oddshark. There's a better chance that Travis proposes to Taylor midfield than it is that Kansas City wins the game and Barkley is the MVP. I'll just leave it at that. I'll take those odds, but I hear what you're saying on the. I'm admittedly a cheap bettor at times. I'd always try to find the value, and that's why for me I've got these 3-leg anytime touchdown parlays. So I'll give you one that I locked in early, right, Jay? So anytime touchdown, Hurts, Kareem Hunt, who's been the goal line back for Kansas City, and Saquon. So you give me Hurts, Hunt, and Saquon, $20. I put it in for $20. It was 145 on the return.
I like that a lot. So let's talk about the Kansas City backfield because I think it's very interesting. And Tony Farmer, I know I've mentioned his name 3 times on oddshark.com. He's on Samaje Perine over 6.5 receiving yards. I was on Isaiah Pacheco over 3.5 receiving yards. And I'll get into that pick a little bit more. But he actually likes Pacheco. He put it out there plus 330 anytime touchdown. I think we're seeing it plus 280 here. But he has seen a little bit of a trend in terms of Pacheco getting some of those goal line carries. So as maybe a little bit of a hedge, if you think Barkley and Hurts get in, you do another little small tickle, but throw in Pacheco instead of Hunt, little more value there. I could 100% see that happening. Yes, go ahead. So, but in terms of my bet on Pacheco over 3.5 receiving yards, I really expect these Chiefs backs to be involved. I expect Mahomes to check the ball down a lot. I expect a little dink and dunk like the Patriots were to do back in the day. But Kareem Hunt, his role has diminished since Pacheco came back from that fractured fibula in the end of November, even though he had 17 carries last week. I just think it's the biggest game of the year. I think maybe they've been saving Pacheco. I think he's going to see the field a lot. He was their RB1 beginning of the season, 25 years old. I think he's more explosive. So I'm expecting a big day out of Pacheco perhaps, and maybe they've kept him under wraps a little bit. So I like over 3.5 receiving yards. Really only needs to catch one football.
Well, that's the thing. And you know, we saw at the end of the AFC Championship game, 3rd and 9, big play. Who did Mahomes go to? Well, it was a great play call from Andy Reid. They slid the running back out of the backfield, put it on him. Easy first down. You ended up cashing over on whomever caught that football, which I do believe it was Perine out of the backfield who caught that. You know, I'm a little torn on the wide receiver market. I feel like the Kelsey piece in terms of the amount of catches might be predictable, but like we're looking at A.J. Brown right now, right? If you scroll back down again to A.J. Brown, I mean, 25 plus yards minus 1,400. But Jay, you start to look at 70 plus yards is minus 117. And A.J. Brown can, make big plays, but I don't know. I'm feeling like if there were a straight over under on Brown receiving yards, I feel like I'm kind of going under with him. I don't know why I feel that way.
I mean, because I think it's a rushing football team. I agree more. Been a lot of chatter about Xavier Worthy. Had a big game. He's had a nice postseason. He's got the speed. 30-1 to win the MVP, Xavier Worthy. Perhaps he gets a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown, but I do think he's going to make an impact. He's sort of a sexy pick that I've seen a lot of handicappers play. My favorite play of the weekend of my 5, I'm on Patrick Mahomes under half an interception thrown. I saw it at minus 130. I don't think Mahomes throws a pick. I understand in the Super Bowl, he's thrown 7 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, but he's only thrown 1 interception in the last 2 Super Bowls. I just have so much faith in him not to turn it over. They fumbled last week in the AFC Championship game. That was their first turnover, the Chiefs I'm talking about, in 521 snaps. Mahomes threw an interception in 7 straight games at one point this season. Then in his next 11 games, he was only intercepted in 1 game. That was week 11 at Buffalo. He threw a pick twice, hasn't thrown a pick since. I just think that they're going to prioritize not turning the football over. They're a lot like the Patriots back in the day. So I don't think Mahomes throws a pick. The Eagles did force 13 interceptions in 17 regular season games. I just don't think Mahomes, I'm looking hard at Mahomes not to make a bad mistake in this game.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of that line of demarcation for Mahomes this year from the beginning of the year to the Buffalo game. There were only 2 games out of, I think it was like 10, that Mahomes did not throw an interception. And then once they hit Thanksgiving, no more interceptions after that. Part of the reason why is they started to get healthy too, Jay. That was the other thing is that, he's now got, meaning Mahomes, has the full complement of wide receivers and everybody out there. So I think you and I are kind of sharing a brain in that the run game will be a big factor. I think Mahomes running the ball every once in a while will end up being a big factor in keeping drives going for Kansas City. And then Cody just threw one up there real quick. Love this Hurts to attempt over 28 throws. That's very interesting because, again, if Saquon gets rolling, how much do they turn to Jalen Hurts' arm? And if Saquon can't get going, Hurts might have a ton of attempts, but how efficient is he really going to be? Lots of fascinating stuff to be able to jump on in this Super Bowl.
No question about it. And unless you have anything else on the Super Bowl, I have to transition to the Patriots and ask you a question.
Please, because I know that we owe the people a thought or two on UFC 312 coming up this weekend.
Yeah, we'll give you a quick thought on that. But I saw something that perked my ears up a little bit.
Okay.
And it was a suggestion that the Patriots trade the number 4th overall pick to the Dallas Cowboys for Micah Parsons. And when I saw that, right, and obviously assuming if they were doing that, they would already have Micah Parsons locked up for forever, right? The lifetime contract, best player in the NFL or whatever it is. And then I see Myles Garrett asking for a trade. So I'll say to you, and I'll quickly say for me, if I could have Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons locked up long-term, I'm happy to part with the number 4 overall pick, no matter what that yields. What do you think?
Hell to the no. Hell no. That is not an indictment on Micah Parsons, who is a fantastic player, but who also is ready to get paid and getting older. Don't you think, though, Dallas has really sort of tailored their defense to him? A lot of it is about him and his opportunities and things like that. Here's where I get hung up on a trade like that, Jay, because I say hell no, because that's me. But if I'm taking that call on the other end, you obviously sit and you ponder. And my thought would be, all right, if I got to trade the number 4 pick in this draft and I'm getting a player, I got to get something else back. Like, Dallas is sitting there at 12. So it's not like you could even do, like, say New England were 26 or say Dallas were 26 and they move up to 4. Now you're talking about a pick swap that is something. 4 to 12, it is big, but it's not a huge deal. I need Dallas a second-round pick in return. Now maybe you're talking, because then you can get back up in the first round, get you an offensive tackle, and you've added an elite defensive player, you've added an offensive tackle, and then you still have a pick in every round the rest of the way. So for me, I would be finicky about it, but unless Micah Parsons is committed to being a leader and a culture setter, and we're going to pay you, and hey, it all might not be about you all the time, that'd be the conversation I would want to have with that particular player. But the fact that Dallas would even entertain this, Jay, just shows you what kind of village idiot the owner is there in running that team in Jerry Jones.
Well, and the business of professional sports is so fluid in terms of some of these dollars and luxury tax conversations in the NBA or whatever it may be. But we joked about Brian Schottenheimer making a few $100,000, or you joked about his 3% raise.
Yeah.
If this may be a little bit of a reset, perhaps, right, where you have a lot of money tied up to Dak Prescott. I mean, you got Washington and Philadelphia competing in the NFC Championship. I think if is any type of reset, and maybe you don't want to pay Micah, that maybe that's an interesting thing. I'm not suggesting that there are rumblings or if there's any type of reality there. But I am looking for the Patriots to make a quick turn, so I wouldn't be opposed.
Yeah, look, Parsons will be 26 this year, and on the way his contract is set up, he's going to get $24 million this season. So now you're talking about Micah Parsons in free agency probably being a $35 to $40 million a year player. I would say this, Jay. Well, feed him. But maybe feed him after he plays this year in Dallas. Because if you're Parsons, do you want to go to essentially a startup? Or say the Patriots get to the middle next year and they've got 8 wins. That's, to me, when you then go and grab someone like that, because that's someone to allow you to kind of break through the glass ceiling.
Yeah, but if Micah Parsons is a football guy, right, I don't look at the Patriots as a startup with Mike Vrabel making eye contact with you and talking to you, whether it's FaceTime or otherwise, and talking about Drake May. I know there's a lot of moving parts, but I'd be much more interested in a player like Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, than even a guy like T. Wiggins. To me, I maybe it's because I'm cut from the Chiefs Patriots cloth where Randy Moss didn't win a Super Bowl. Tyreek Hill, you trade him, you win one the next year. I just believe in sort of the toughness component. Anyway, I know we got to talk about fighting.
No, I'm with you. And look, I'm not anti Parsons at all. And there's another guy, Cooper Kupp, in terms of, where's his next team going to be? You see the Patriots are in there plus 600. Here's what I would say. I think Kupp is going to turn 30 or he's 30, turning 31 this year. A little long in the tooth for a wide receiver. You're going to pay $20 million. And I know Kendrick Bourne was out there saying, oh, you go get this guy, you're guaranteed, yada, yada, yada. I'm not so sure about that because I think some of the value of the offensive players are inflated because of the one-sided head coach out there, and that's actually a compliment to Sean McVay.
Well, Cooper Kupp, since Cody pulled it up on the screen, Louis Riddick was making some really interesting points. This guy's Super Bowl MVP a few years back. Now he's expendable. But I do believe he made a great catch in that Philly game. I do believe in the right situation, he still could absolutely be a piece that could take a team over the top. And every year that falls off the calendar, all of these contracts become better in a lot of ways because the money just keeps going up and up and up. So I think the right team, it could make a lot of sense to lock in as a number 2 receiver. But I talked a lot about the Rams, should it be wanting to be sellers this season? And even though they made a nice run, it's clear that they kind of agreed with me. They would have loved to maybe get something back for Cooper Kupp. Now I think they've sort of minimized his value a little bit. He doesn't want to leave there. He wanted to finish his career there. So I think someone's going to get a pretty good, motivated, hungry player.
You got to hit the timing right when it comes to these players on the market. They look at it that way in free agency. Teams need to look at it that way when it comes to moving on from a player. And I know that we would be doing a disservice if we didn't at least touch on what is going to happen on Saturday in Sydney Olympic Park, Australia, where UFC 312 will take place, where it is the main event for the middleweight championship. It is Dricus du Plessis, who has just been on a meteoric rise since getting into UFC, against the sometimes naughty mouth Sean Strickland. For me, just quickly here, Jay, I know du Plessis is a minus 198 favorite. Strickland is around plus 165. I just don't know why this result would be different than from the last time these guys got together.
Fair point. And I got a text from my brother John at 3:04 a.m. at the beginning of gas. I guess he didn't tune in today from Australia, but I believe he has landed in Australia, or at least he said it was 3:04 a.m. But yeah, unless I'm mistaken, and Cody could speak to this in the chat, I believe when John watched this fight back, the first fight, he thought perhaps Strickland won. I don't agree with that at all, but I do believe it was a close fight. But I just believe that Dricus du Plessis is on a mission and on a different track than a guy like Sean Strickland. So I love du Plessis here. He is such a cold-blooded killer. I think his mentality is second to none. So I just believe in Dricus. I also can't really be someone that roots hard for Sean Strickland. He and my boy Bilal Muhammad, I think, are destined to meet in the octagon down the road at some point. But yeah, I like Dricus quite a bit in this spot. I'm actually more intrigued by Tatiana Suarez getting an opportunity to realize a UFC championship in the co-main event against Zhang Weili, someone Daniel Cormier has called, and I agree with him, the greatest athlete in the United States, in the world, perhaps. Zhang Weili puts her on that type of pedestal. So many sharp people, Dominic Cruz, Kenny Florian, Ray Longo, everyone I've talked to loves Tatiana Suarez. She is the favorite now, I believe, unless I'm mistaken. Yep, minus 112, small favorite over Zhang Weili. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I do, but if I'm not mistaken, I think it was UFC Unleashed where they're doing the previews for this. They did the profile on Zhang Weili, who went, I think it was to Thailand or something like that to go train, and just talking about the hours of difference and things like that, and realizes that against Suarez, she's got to work on the grappling end of it. And they showed her really in the gym, just kind of learning things and trying to implement much more of that wrestling on the ground. And listen, DC's got a trained eye, and he's never wrong, but this might be the one where, well, this might be the fight where for Zhang Weili, yeah, I think there's real danger here. And it's interesting. I referenced my youngest, who's only 20, but he's the big MMA fan. And we were watching that thing, and I said, boy, I don't know, Suarez and Zhang Weili. And he was like, no, Suarez has got a real chance, and here's the reason why. And it's a lot of the stuff that you mentioned. I think Suarez gets it. Now, the odds that are listed on the UFC website are Suarez a small favorite at minus 122 to Zhang Weili at plus money at 102. I know that Strickland is up to minus 205 already. That's Suarez. And Suarez and Zhang Weili is pretty much even in terms of the betting market right now. But I'm with you. That is good. That might end up being the fight of the night when it's all said and done.
And I want to make a point. Alexander, I should have looked up the pronunciation. Forgive me. Topuria Topuria.
I know there's Alexandre Pantoja, and then I don't know how your brother keeps it all straight.
Yeah, well, no, he does his homework, which I didn't do. But Ilia Topuria's brother will be competing. His opponent's name, and I haven't cursed in a few weeks on any program, Gresh. I would love to curse, but I'm not going to. But his name is Colby Thickness. His last name is Thickness. Talk about a mixed martial arts last name. I did some regional MMA at one point, and I covered an athlete who has the best nickname I've ever heard. His name was Tom the Status Quo. Right? K-U-O is his last name. How about that nickname? It's really hard for me now. Tom the Status Quo. That's the best nickname in MMA, but Thickness as a last name. But apparently Topuria's brother, I think Merab said he's better than me. So I'm fascinated to see him compete. But yeah, it's already Wednesday in Australia.
I know it's pretty crazy. And we know that UFC 312 is right around the corner. Hey, real quick, I just want to mention, I went to my first BKFC fight down in Mohegan Sun on Saturday. We were ringside. What an unbelievable sort of take. You ready for this, Jay? About 7,000 people in Mohegan Sun Arena, which holds 8,500.
Wow.
So they had a great crowd coming off of that Philly sellout. Couple of things I would say to the BKFC people, okay? The first guy who was in there against there was a dude from Mass who looked like he was on the roids because his back knee was out of control. And the other guy looked like friggin' Ned from Jiffy Lube. That guy, Ned from Jiffy Lube, dislocates his shoulder in about 10 seconds. It's literally hanging down, and the guy turns and looks and da-da-da, right? So the guy, Feldman, who runs this deal, we were literally sitting behind him, and a guy in the co-main event, right? Brennan Ward is a kid from New London, Connecticut, right? He was in the co-main event. First shot he gives his opponent, breaks his nose, Jay. Like you saw it go, and literally, so the guy goes down. He's trying to fix his nose. This guy's nose is completely out of place. The fans are screaming to the ref, oh my God. I saw the owner guy get up, and he hit the back of his chair when they called the fight. As if, oh my God, it wasn't exciting enough. Guy got his nose broken, for crying out loud. And the guy wasn't thrilled. And then in the main event, it was a banger. It was awesome. I have to say it was a great take. It was a ton of fun. But I will say this to the people around BKFC, including their announcers, who I don't know from anybody, and I don't want to do any slander or anything like that. Sit your ass down. You can't be ringside standing up. And that's to the owner of BKFC. That's to the broadcasters of BKFC. You can't, like, if your brother stood up broadcasting, it would be when the fight was over, and you're not. So we get too many people standing up down around the ring, for God's sakes. My wife's 5 foot tall in the morning. We had to move her into a different seat so she could see, because we had all these people walking around standing up. It's like, damn it, you're around the ring. Sit your ass down.
Oh, everybody in the Ultimate Fighting Championship has that memo. You can be sure. And John, every time he stands up with a call, he's got someone pushing him down. But what's fascinating is at UFC 311 in LA, Khabib cornering Umar. You're not supposed to stand as the corner. This member of the LA Fighting Commission, California Fighting Commission, same guy that put me on the scale, by the way, when I got to weigh in, the 150 flat. Let's go. But anyway, yeah, same guy. He was pulling Khabib down all night trying to get him to sit down. I'm sure that has everything to do with the viewership. So.
Oh, there's no question. And you know what's cool too is in the what was it in that PFL fight? Khabib was there coaching Usman.
Yeah,
I always get and. You had Islam there, and Islam couldn't say a word while the fight was going on. So he had to sit there. You know, Islam Makhachev, he's kind of got that stare. Like, he kind of looks through you a little bit. But to watch him have to, like, not say anything, and then as soon as Nurmagomedov came to the corner, Islam, like, would not shut up. Like, Khabib got his in, and then Islam was like, yeah, and you know how he speaks. It's the whole, oh, you got to do this, brother. You get him down. Yeah. And you know what I mean? It was listen, I just love the fight game. I think we're all in on it. There is plenty of room in the MMA universe for everyone. And UFC is clearly the leader. We know people want to get there. One more thing about BKFC, and I'm not putting their product over, but I want to put two former UFC guys over. My kid and I were so excited to see these two guys in BKFC. Parker Porter, who is as tall as he is wide. Once I saw that guy, and Jorgen De Castro.
Wow.
Now, you've seen how Jorgen De Castro's built, right? They say he's 6'2". I say bull crap. He is just a squatty potty guy. And that owner dude was like, it got a little slow during the play. He said, come on, let's go. And in about 2 minutes, it was over because Big Jorgen did the job and the guy couldn't answer the bell. So a hell of a lot of fun. Lots of different ways to take in fighting. If you like seeing people getting blasted in the face in a physical, violent kind of way, then you know there are lots of promotions out there for you to be able to see it. So this is a rare UFC where you're just on the couch, right?
Yeah, I look forward to these tremendously. At some point, I'd like my brother to pony up and bring me with him to Australia. But when I go to these events, they used to give me a headset so I could listen to the broadcast. And I got to the point where I'm around people watching the fights. You don't really want to be sort of listening to the broadcast. So I spent years watching John and criticizing him and giving him notes after every show. So for me to actually sit home and be able to listen to my brother is a unique privilege because I am sort of right behind him most of the time.
And we love it. I mean, we listen to John all the time as well. And he's the GOAT. He's the best. That's why he is in the spot that he is in. So I think we've given you a little bit of everything, folks. Some Super Bowl breakdown and some bets, the NBA, a little Celtic stuff, and of course some UFC on our way out the door as well. We're here each and every Tuesday at 11 a.m. here on the on YouTube. You can find us. We're also streaming on X. We're streaming on Instagram as well. You can get Jay everywhere at Boston Anik. You can get me everywhere, including subscribing to this show and YouTube at The Real Gresh. Great job by our guy, Cody. We will see you next Tuesday for a Super Bowl recap.